Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Louise Watt. Indonesia and the US kicked off a joint military exercise, Super Garuda Shield, at the end of August. The exercise was launched in Sidoarjo in East Java, Indonesia. Its aim to increase US-Indonesian military cooperation, particularly the ability of their armies to work together. The exercise comes as the US and others express concern over China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea. More than 5,000 troops are taking part, not just from Indonesia and the US, but also Australia, Japan, the United Kingdom, Singapore, and France. Joining us to discuss this and more today are Yuan Yi, National Zhengzhou University Institute of International Relations Adjunct Research Fellow, and Charles Wu, National Zhengzhou University Department of Diplomacy Professor and Chair. A very warm welcome to you both, gentlemen. Hello. Now let's start with these exercises. How significant are they, Yuan Yi, and particularly this year, given that there's more countries participating and observing?
Well, timing-wise, it is an exciting moment since we watch closely about the progress this region faces as the rivalry between China and United States grow even, intense. So the timing-wise, I think it attracts a lot of attention worldwide, and also it coincides with the forthcoming presidential election of the United States. That's a purely coincidence. But and yet the story is not new at all. The project began earlier, since 2006. I think the United States already established a certain, establishment about the urgent need for the world to attract and working together to address the issue. Last year makes another important steps. So this year has only culminated the efforts that have been made in the past to attract attention, and that along about the first line of interaction between China along with its neighboring country, including in particular with the Philippines. I think even attract more attention. So geographically speaking, while Indonesia is located in the region, it faced a similar daunting challenge along with the South China Sea issues and also on other important development. So that make the joint efforts to coping with this issue more cohesively.
Mm-hmm. And Charles, China has criticized this exercise as, all these countries coming together. It sees these expanded drills as a threat, that the US is almost trying to create a NATO of the Indo-Pacific, as it were. Is China justified in worrying about this?
Because, that China is a major trading partner for most of the ASEAN's members. And also ASEAN members really care about the trading opportunity with China. However, we will know that the South China Sea issues and also, even Indonesia, they have overlapped some, island issues in the North Natuna Sea with China. So this kind of love and hate scenario also we can apply to Indonesia. So this time, I think Indonesia not only do the military drill with the United States, they also have this kind of military exercises with China. I think this very important lesson and also strategy we know for most of the ASEAN countries, they want to do this what we call the hedging, or we call the neutrality, or we call the non-alignment movement. So I think Indonesia is the same case when we study the Southeast Asian countries. They want to try to omni-enmeshment, what we call omni-enmeshment, trying to bring the great power into the regions. If you want to get involved with ASEAN members, you're all welcome.
So as you mentioned there, Indonesia and China, they're going to be doing some exercises on a much smaller scale, restarting exercises next year. You say it's about Indonesia hedging because the tensions in the South China Sea have concerned Indonesia as well, with China increasingly going closer to various waters that are disputed. Now, what's in it for China if China restarts these exercises with Indonesia in 2025? Why does China want to do this?
I think one needs to take into account of the ASEAN as a whole, all right? Since there's a collective effort, more institutional-based pattern of interaction between ASEAN state and China, okay? So this is on the regional collective level, and lower to that on the bilateral one. So we could discern a pattern of interaction of the past, the practice, the China deal ASEAN as a whole, and also China deal ASEAN member on a bilateral basis. So overall patterns suggest there's a consistent, coherent pattern of interaction between the two capitals, various capitals. In the case of China and Indonesia, I think they have been already, make some progress as early as 2005, followed by the 2013, 2021, and 2022. A sequence of interactions leading to today's development. So this is something like a small breakthroughs. So the China wish to push even further, okay, to enhance the quality of interaction of the two states. So they gather together to two ministers level representatives to address to one another on a regular basis. Case in point, well, this is a step-by-step practice by China, by the Chinese initiative to respond that. I think Indonesia, demonstrated as an individual states and also as a member of ASEAN states to coping with this overall, concern.
Well, also, it's often considered the de facto leader of ASEAN in some quarters. I mean, is this why could restarting these military exercises with Indonesia help increase China's influence in ASEAN? Is that what it's all about, do you think, Charles?
Yeah, we know Indonesia is a major actor in ASEAN, okay? By population, by lands, by their economic size. This is why, from the China side, Indonesia is very important for China, okay? Because they are also, I mentioned that, major trading partners. For 2023, the total trade from China to Indonesia is about 140 billions, okay? It's a little bit less than Vietnam. Vietnam is about 200 billions. But Indonesia is 140 billions, the trade amounts between these two countries. And also, there are several projects sponsored by China. For example, we know that this Rampant Eco City project sponsored by China. And also, China helped Indonesia to build the first high-speed railroad, the KCJB. So this kind of we call embed and strengthen economic cooperation between these two countries, kind of make their bilateral relations more kind of stabilized. However, like I mentioned that, there's still some issues between these two countries. For example, the North Natuna Sea. So the new president's Prabowo administration, when Prabowo, he ran the elections, he also mentioned the importance and the critical points on North Natuna Sea, okay? How far he will go on these issues, how far he will use the North Natuna Sea as a bargaining chip with China, we don't know that. But we know that China really pay attention to this area because China doesn't want to another front line on the South China Sea. Right now, China needs to handle the Sandy Cay, second Scottsboro Shoal, and second Thomas Shoal issues with Philippines. And Beijing they don't want to drag another major power into the South China Sea and make this area even worse.
So you mentioned there Prabowo, he's president-elect, he's not coming to power till October. But what do you rate his chances of being his chances of being able to balance both the US and China, relations with both? Because if we see on the one side, Indonesia clearly wants better military cooperation with Western powers, but it also wants good relations with China, which is its huge neighbor there in its backyard. So how can Prabowo balance the two, do you think?
It's fair to say that Indonesia in the past tried to play its role as a non-aligned movement neutral, maintain its neutrality, but it's no longer able to, play a simple role. So when it comes to the new identity of Indonesia to play, I think it involves multidimensional. So one could easily identify Indonesia play as a pivotal state when it comes to this regional dispute. Pivotal state means that it occupies some strategic important position, yet has not been able to assimilate into the US-led alliance. Okay, so this is a very tricky. And also on the personal level, I think it will take many years to come to see whether Indonesia would be able to exert more powerful or profound impact on this issue, because it will take time for a strong leader to build up as a charisma. So time will tell. But at this moment, I think a new elected president will simply to comply what has been faithfully carried out by his predecessors as some neutral player. And also one important element I like to highlight, it is, with the intensity of the possibility of a conflict over Taiwan Strait, involve some a number of the migrant workers from India who are now working inside Taiwan. So that worries the Indonesia government. So they would like to pay, attention on the issue.
I mean, what do you think about all that, Charles? The Indonesia's strategic location, does that give it any more of a boost when trying to balance the US and China and relations with them both?
Geographic location, I think, since it belongs to the ASEANs, usually China view as the Southeast Asia as their backyards. However, the United States right now want to have more influence in these areas, especially when we talk about South China Sea issues, the free navigation issues. I think the United States play a very important and also major role here. So for most of the countries, especially like Indonesia, they need to balance between the two great powers. You want to trade opportunities, but you also want a security assurance in this area. So for Prabowo, I think he will try to adjust a little bit about his foreign policy comparing with his campaign announcement, because we know that when he started his campaign, he's more assertive on his South China Sea policies. But he got elected, he needs to handle this kind of, the two great powers balance.
He needs to become more diplomatic.
Yes, this is how the presidents need to do when he go to the office.
So even before he takes office, Indonesia and China have held their first, you alluded to it earlier, Yueni, their first ministerial-level 2+2 high-level meeting that happened in mid-August. Now, when two countries hold military and diplomatic 2+2 talks, it often signals high-level mutual trust. Now, is there mutual trust between Indonesia and China, would you say?
I think at this moment, there is no serious, conflicts exist between China and Indonesia. On the contrary, I think overlapping interests, provide more ammunition for cooperation potential. And yet, let me reiterate it, given the nature of as a pivotal states in sandwich in these two camps, I think the survival kit for the Indonesian leaders is try to maintain a balance as much as they could, and yet I think the new leader will have to be associated, being socialized with the environment, political environment. Up to now, I think the level of the 2x2 ministry, the level of engagement suggests that only very symbolic move has been made. It will take time for the two countries to move even further. We'll see what will happen.
So symbolic for now. What do you think China would like to see out of the 2+2, Yuanyi?
Up to now, I think that China will face a potential pitfall when it comes to security issues. You know, in the past, practice only suggests that each time that reach the critical security issue, it will always met with the resistance from various capital. Okay, I do not believe that Indonesia will be an exception.
And is that because of all the moves that China's been making in the South China Sea? It's been building up islands, it's been encroaching on other countries' territory. So it's hard to have trust when China does things like that, would you say?
I think that's another dimension of the issues when it comes to security issues. For instance, on the South China, ASEAN states have already passed the Treaty of Bangkok, which promulgated this region as a nuclear weapon-free zone. However, since the enter into force of a treaty in 1996, it has not been able to reach the agreement with China on the signing a critical protocols. So that's the reality, all right? Other than the reality, I think at the moment that the two sides will carry the diplomatic practice.
Okay. Well, diplomatic practice between Indonesia and China, but Indonesia's moving on to a new defense agreement with Australia. So, Charles, in this new defense agreement Indonesia and Australia have signed, they pledge closer cooperation to address security threats in the Asia-Pacific region. Why now? Why are they signing such an agreement now?
This agreement is not like current affairs. It's already started in 2023 February. And this kind of military and also security agreements cover several kind of perspectives and areas. For example, military drills, military deployments, enhanced maritime cooperations, and also particularly the issues on the South China Sea. So this kind of agreements between Australia and Indonesia is a kind of overall very broad agreements. However, we know that they also have interesting other areas and issues. For example, they try to link to economic cooperations, food security, and also they try to do more cooperation on combating drug trafficking. So instead of we only focusing on the military cooperation between Indonesia and Australia, we can say this is more broader overall. But one thing we still need to pay attention to is Australia government also pay attention to the new President Prabowo's issues, especially his human rights issues, human rights records, because there are some allegations about his involvement in the atrocities in East Timor, and also the kidnapping issues.
And of course, he was once sanctioned by the US, couldn't visit there.
Yes, so we know that Australian government, they pay more attention to these human rights issues. So I think in the future, they probably, between the Australian government and Indonesian government, they will have this kind of debate or discussion about Indonesia's human rights situation and conditions when the Prabowos go to the office.
So, Yuanyi, should we not worry too much that there's this defense agreement that possibly Indonesia and Australia are expecting trouble in the South China Sea or even the Taiwan Strait? Is it, as Charles said, we should also consider all the other areas that this agreement covers? And defense is just one part of it.
I think the one should tackle from the comprehensive perspective. Well, security constitutes only one aspect. I think there are other related issues should be taken into account.
Okay, so maybe they're not gearing up for any impending trouble, upcoming trouble in the Taiwan Strait or the South China Sea. It's more about building those relations, is it?
Especially with the Indonesia style of practice. I think the Indonesia accumulated as a very time-honored practice. So I think that it could exert some impact for the future.
Okay, well, we'll move on from Indonesia now because China's influence on Southeast Asia extends beyond Indonesia to the Indochina Peninsula. So there have been numerous developments involving Chinese money recently, including China's involvement in Cambodia's Funan Techo Canal project. So this 180-kilometer canal would connect the lower Mekong River to the coastal province of Kep, opening onto the South China Sea. So UNE, China is giving the money for this canal. What is its thinking, its strategic thinking behind it?
Well, to us, this is really something surprising move. I think neither Washington D.C. or the Vietnamese anticipated this happen. I asked my Vietnamese friend; they were so shocked by this move. So this only demonstrated the grand scale of the Chinese strategy on this piece of land. I think away from the maritime scope of concern, and China simply, surprised us by moving onto the terrain of the untouched. I mean, the case in point, Cambodia, the very in the past suffered a great deal from its neighboring relation with Vietnam, and also the natural setting, forced Cambodia to court Vietnam for its passage of the Mekong River. Well, the very artificial breakthrough, driven by this grand scheme, offers something for the first time, So the money-wise, we have not been able to jump to the conclusion as how much money or to what percentage of the ownership that the China will be able to exercise on this project, and yet, but it has already started. Within according to the timetable, within four years of time, there will be a mission completed. So the overall, significant out of this is one has to, be very serious about each move that China is taking now in this part of the world. I think to address the issue, one has to be using a very systemic way of thinking as to, gauge the possibility of the breakthrough, or to what extent that such a strategic gain may be rendered out of this practice.
And so your friends, Vietnamese friends who were very, taken by this, what was their main concern?
Well, scientifically, people are worried about once the canal is operational, to what extent the volumes of water will be diverted. So the deputy minister of Cambodia, who expand the only very small portion, according to his estimation, less than 0.003% of water will be diverted. I think economic impact, and also I think the psychological impact would be also generated of this. For instance, because the very architect simply reshape the geography. So this is something new.
Okay, well, China also has grand designs on the railroads in the region. So China is aiming to create the Pan-Asian Railway. That's a network of railways that connects China with 6 other countries in the region under the Belt and Road Initiative. Charles, how do you view China's intentions here? Is this simply about trade?
China and Vietnam, they are major trading partners. For consecutive 3 years, the total trade amount between China and Vietnam is more than $200 billion. So the Hanoi view China as a very important trading partners. However, we call it the South China Sea issues, and also the anti-Chinese sentiment in the Vietnamese societies, make Vietnam very cautious and very careful when they talk about their Chinese foreign policy. But like we know that the Belt and Road Initiative is a major, very important strategies China adopted on the Southeast Asian countries. No matter it's Cambodia's, the Canal we are talking about, the high-speed railroad we are talking about right now, they are belong to China's BRI. And China, they have the kind of grand strategy, try to connect it several major cities in the Vietnams, like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City. They have tried to help Vietnamese to build their first high-speed railroad, okay, like the Indonesia one, KCJB. So Vietnamese, I think they cherish this opportunity because they want to expand their railroad map from until 2026 to 2027. They want to develop about 1,500 kilometers north and south high-speed railroad system. And also they have a great plan until 2050. They want to connect the Vietnam Railroad Network to the Trans-Asian Railway via China and the ASEAN Railway Network via Laos and Cambodia. So if you just look at the map, if the Pan-Asia Railroad completed, they will connect most of the major cities in Indochina Peninsula and also the major cities in the Southeast Asian countries.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. And thank you for watching. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching Taiwan Talks. Stay safe. See you next time.